Alright guys, welcome back to another episode of Beyond the Blueprint, and today we're going to be looking at another kind of small feature, and that is going to be contract structure as well as incentive packages. So when we talk about contracts and contract structure, I'm mainly talking about the ability to front load and back load contracts, which isn't something that's new to Madden. They actually had that in Madden 12. And then with the incentive packages, that isn't going to be something that is entirely new as much as it would be transitioning one mechanic into serving another purpose, and in this case that mechanic would be goals. Now, goals were implemented at the beginning of CFM and were and still are essentially the base for the XP system and performance-based progression, and if you watch my What the Franchise video on that, then you already know that I'm not a fan of that at all. But when you're looking to make franchise better, or anything better really, the one thing you want to avoid at all costs is just throwing things out. No matter how good or bad they are, that should always be a last resort, and if you're just throwing it out, then there's no way around it. That's going to be a step backwards. So when I looked at goals in Madden, I tried to come up with a way that it could still work within CFM without necessarily being tied to progression, and basically what I landed on there was contract incentives. And by making this transition, you actually allow goals to open up a bit and become more than just the strictly stat chasing benchmarks for progression, and it becomes something that can play roles into things like contract negotiations, whether it be through re-signing or free agency, and then can also factor into something like player morale as well. So what you've been seeing here is just some mock-ups of a free agency negotiation screen, and looking to the bottom there, you have the 3 different incentive packages for a player, and they're separated into 3 categories of easy, medium, and hard. And as you can see, the difficulty of those goals and the amount of money that is going to come from those goals is going to ramp up accordingly. Another thing you're going to notice there is that the goals range anywhere from the individual goals based on stats and awards like yards, touchdowns, Pro Bowls, and MVP, to things like play time with the percentage of snaps, to also more team-oriented goals like winning divisions, conference championships, or Super Bowls. And what this does is it allows for an additional dynamic within contract negotiations and makes them a little bit less set and forget, in that there's always going to be an active portion of a certain contract at all times. So when you're signing a guy with an incentive package, you're almost essentially carving out a role for him that he's going to expect you to honor, as well as potentially carving out expectations for your team if that's part of the package as well. So then the thought might become, well, this is just going to be another way to manipulate the cap and basically shaft all your players for more cap space at the end of each season. But that is where a player morale or a team reputation mechanic could come in as well. I've used this example before, but it's a lot like the promise system for recruits in NCAA football. If you don't accomplish a player's goals, you could probably expect them to be unhappy about that fact, because that's going to be money that they're missing out on. And you can get away with this for guys that you're not going to bring back, but at the same time, if you continue to do that, your team reputation may drop, and something like that can also affect negotiations with future players, because they won't take your offers as seriously, or more so, offering an incentive package wouldn't carry as much weight if your team has a poor track record with that kind of thing. So just by shifting goals into something like this, you're creating this nice little dynamic between contract negotiations, player morale, and then gameplay as well, which I think would be miles better than having them revolve basically around stat chasing and having an effect on player progression as well. Getting back to contracts and contract structure though, like I said, having the ability to front load and back load salary is something that's been in Madden before. I'm not really sure why it was taken out, but it's something that allows for a little bit more flexibility with the cap depending on how you want to dole out a contract. But outside of that though, I know there's some other things that you could do, but I think keeping options limited, or more so just simplified for something like contracts, is a better way to go, just because the more factors you throw in there, the harder it's going to become for the average user, and the more time it's going to take. And then as well with that, the more it's more that the AI is going to have to take into account as well, which usually ends up being a bad thing. But as you can see in these mock-ups, it's largely a very familiar interface, but with a little bit more information available to you and a few changes to how you can set up an offer, in that you have the ability to change a contract by things like total contract value, average per year, and guaranteed money. And then you get the full year-by-year breakdown of the contract as well. That's gonna do it though. Let me know what you guys think of the idea to transition goals into contract incentives, and also any additional ways or elements you'd like to see involved in player contracts. My next video will be a What the Franchise video on game planning data. I haven't decided what the next Beyond the Blueprint video will be yet, but I should have that figured out by the time the next video drops, so I'll be sure to let you know in that. Or if you guys have anything you'd like to see, let me know. But hope you guys enjoyed this video, and until next time, thanks for watching.